the daily part 2. Pow, pow. I shot you with guns of knowledge. Well, I didn't. I basically am acting as the parrot, re-articulating the brilliance that we are seeing from HuK and SaSe right now, where we just saw a nice opening that would break the front. Saw some interesting chatter in the chat. I just want to still note that this push will come at around 7 minutes. Actually, hell, 6:50 it seems. Boink. I will note that a second bunker will help hold this off, but there's 2 considerations I want to emphasize. One, if you build that bunker, you delay this factory. And you have to build this bunker. As a matter of fact, bunkers take a long time. I don't think anyone really acknowledges bunker build length, but if you just look, a bunker takes 40 seconds to build. So we would have had to start right now. When is this moment? It's right when we really would like to spend that money on stim. So building this bunker is at a pretty critical time. So that's good. Again, I want to emphasize this build is fantastic, not because it works in one spot, because it messes up a lot of things. Second thing I want to consider, if I'm playing this and I see a second bunker, what I can actually do is just warp in another round of sentries, another round of zealots, and then hit it 8 to 8:30. And it ends up being very, very powerful, especially if you just spend some chronos on the warp gates. That's a little bit risky if you, don't have a good read on your opponent. If you see like some marauders in there, then you know he kind of got an early tech lab, because that does take some time. But I'm not going to go into that with too much detail. I'm just going to emphasize that if you come here, you can easily make some decisions based upon the bunker count. Like hell, you can always back up and go mid-game. This 3-stalker round doesn't have to happen. If you saw this, you could easily just build a robo facility. Watch Naniwa's games with GSL, you'll see very similar builds to this. When this stops working, boop, go for robo facility. The double assimilator, I don't think you should ever do earlier than 55. So now we're going to zip through this mid-game, so that way we can get the chance to hop onto a game from HuK. And just watch his awesomeness. So this is kind of not part of the build, but this is something that you could do. The traditional player will build an immortal right now, and then, right when the immortal's getting close to done, you build the support bay for the Colossus and an observer. But SaSe does love his Warp Prism play, so I don't have any issue with that. The important moment in any Terran vs. Protoss, I think the defining moment of the matchup, is a little before 10 minutes, i.e. right when medevacs pop out. I just broadly call it the 10-minute TVP mark. This is when you have to stop doing this. SaSe, very simply, whoops, getting close to 10, force field, run! Oh my god! You don't need to scout medevacs, you just know 10-minute is the scary money time. 10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, 10 minutes is the scary time. 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. So, we see the observer coming out. I will note that if you do this delayed robo stuff, this observer should not be going into the base. You know what he's doing. If he early expanded and you're pulling back, you know that he's either going for a good amount of barracks units to do a push at the front, or medevacs to do a push at the front. You don't need to look into his base. Anything else is quite honestly bad. I mean, if he's another way to think of it is, if you go in there and see him going ghosts, is that really going to make you change your composition? You're going to be going Colossus, Immortals. I mean, your sentries should always be carefully positioned. You don't want to see ghosts and go, well, maybe I should stop being a dumbass and put my sentries at the front. You want to do that before you end up scouting. In other words, the observer is not to check his base. It's not. It's not to check his base. You don't need to check his base. Don't check his base. Are you scouting too much in PvT? Stop it! This observer is to be planted outside the front, or at a key attack point, so you can spot what's up. Because the 10-minute mark is when the Terran player has to do something in order to actually maintain some edge in the game. So we see SaSe doing all this fun shenaniganry. I'll note this is a very high-level move. Hey, my Robo finished at 8:30. I'll spend a minute building a Warp Prism and then counter-drop him, because I know at this point in time he has to be thinking about doing aggressive moves like this. In other words, he won't have stuff in the base. So I just credit SaSe for being frickin' brilliant. You don't have to do this. I will always build the Immortal. I watch SaSe stream all the damn time. And I still just build the Immortal because I'm a sissy. And I know where my skills lie, and they do not lie in these sort of multitask drops. That's such a sugar-coated way of saying I'm not as good as SaSe. That's not where my skill set lies. My skill set doesn't lie. It lies in building Immortals. Come on, alright? Let's be honest. Don't sugarcoat it. I wouldn't do that because I just don't trust myself as being good enough. And you know what? I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that. It's not where my skill sets lie. Oh god, I hate it when bullshit comes out of my mouth and I'm like, wait a minute, who am I? So here is the moment that every single frickin' Protoss player dreads, this multi-pronged attack garbage. But no big deal. We just kind of play it out normally. If we manage to deflect some of what is going to occur between 10 and 12, we have a follow-up question as to whether or not he's getting his third. Almost always, around 10 and 12, we can do an assessment of the situation and figure out whether we can take this third. We just swatted a drop away, so in this time, we want to keep the Robo facility as active as possible and largely keep our gateways inactive. Why? If a drop occurs, we need to be able to warp in here, or warp in here. Colossi, we need to start building right away from this Robo, because we can't just warp in 3 Colossi at once. We do have to build them one at a time. So SaSe just continues to do this poking and prodding to try to keep his opponent occupied for as long as possible. So note that a push like this only makes sense if we have a lot of idle gateways at home. If I had 3 gateways, I might be leery to even push this far. We left Stalkers here. We can have some units back here in due time. But if you have ever done economic damage to an opponent, an excellent transition is a relatively fast Dark Shrine. Obviously, we want to get the Twilight Council up. It lets us get our Forge upgrades up. And it lets us get charge. But I love the idea of getting a Dark Shrine up quite quickly. If he's suffered economic damage early on, then he's going to want to be muling, not saving up stuff for scan. Very consistent with getting this Nexus up. But notice that we have a lot of idle gates, and all the rest of our money we're spending on tech, upgrades, more gates, yeah! And let's go ahead and glance up here as we start to see this big amount of stuff coming. Remember that Observer? Observer is not for scouting. It is not for going into the main, it's for checking these counterattack paths. And these drop paths. And so you notice how much sense this makes. I'm going to leave my huge Colossus army on the left, and I'm going to keep an Observer to the right. I'm going to build a pylon to the right. Oh, look, we have some more Observers to do some spotting. Oh, how lovely. Oh. And look, just hanging out at the front. But here's where SaSe is basically asking if the third base is done or not. This is all the key stuff. Look up here, we're starting to build less probes, and this is where we're going to begin flooding units. It still will be quite close. However, the 15-minute mark is the other important period. From about 10 to about 15, and I'm sort of debating on how I want to define this range, but you know what? A 5-minute range is easy to remember, so I'm going to say 10 minutes to 5 minutes. That's when the Terran kicks into aggression at 10, and when it really halts, or I don't want to say halts, but when you can finish drawing big conclusions at 15 minutes. If by 15 minutes you see no expansion, you know that this guy is committing hard on 2 bases. You know this. Or he's awful, one of the two. So if I'm in SaSe's position, I know that I need to hold off only this push, and then I'll be quite comfortable. It looks a little bit close, but we do have 9 gateways back here that we'll be able to do some gigantic warpings. Look at this. Oh no, looking really scary. Yeah, sure, doing some harassment here, but what do we... Oh, wait. Oh, wait, I just warped in 1 full round and now I'm fine. And now, this is where, from about here till 18, I'll say, if this expansion was up, between here and 18 or 19 minutes is when the Protoss needs to make a big move. The harassment will generally stop at 13 if the Terran went for 3rd base. Or I should say it'll be not as threatening at that point in time. This is very threatening because Heart is just committing on 2 bases. But SaSe doesn't really need to do that much. Oops, I'm going a little bit long in this segment. Alright, speeding it up. I'm doing too much analysis. This is about openings, damn it. And there's a Protoss player who's like, wait, go on, I always lose at that time. I'm so sorry, I just finished. Forgive me. But SaSe just continues pushing nicely. But the important thing to note is that at 15, we didn't see an expansion, so we're in all defense mode. If at 15 we saw an expansion, we might go into offense mode. I want to note that these games that we're watching are from the lower bracket of IPL 4, so if you're looking for that, simply look up IPL 4 replay pack and you'll find it. It is in Losers Round 7. Here's the HuK Virus games that we're going to be watching now. Here's the SaSe Heart games. So let's go ahead and look at HuK versus Virus. Game number 2 on Antigua Shipyard. In part number 1, in the first half of part number 2, we got the chance to see this very nice opening from SaSe. With no scouting, we still accounted for all the possibilities. Aggression from barracks units, aggression from gas units, banshees, early expand. We had all of it covered thanks to this very nice timing. And with a little bit of chrono boosting on the gateway, we were able to get 5 gateway units out before our warp-in finished. Sexy. In this game, what we're going to be looking at is a very fun, cool, kick-ass way to deal with an early expand Terran. Often when you're against an early expand Terran, I would break it into 2 categories. Gateway aggression style openings, and then into some sort of long-term play, or robo-defensive. This is the general categories I would lump them into. HuK's going to do something sort of in between that is not, I think I would describe it as not as popular as it should be. It's going to be a Twilight Council focused aggression with fast blink. Oh, how sexy. Fast blink against Terran. Let's check it out. Nifty, thrifty. Nice fast blink. And let's go to the HuK cam. Okay, cool. We're on Antigua Shipyard. I would describe this as a big map with scouting being pretty easy. I mean, if we just look, like, the center is not actually that big. I mean, if we control the watchtower, we can see most of the center. And if we park a unit outside their base, we can see anything coming out. This is just not... It's not that bad to just spot, I guess. Spotting is a little bit easier than scouting. Obviously, we have to deal with this front, but we can kind of see what's coming at us. In general, you kind of need to build a first zealot to deal with most aggression. Like, if he's doing a hardcore Marine King Prime style 2 racks, you kind of need that first zealot up. So HuK's going to have to do some good reads. This is on the IPL version, so it's cross-map only. It does have gold, and none of that makes any sense to me. That's the way it was. Ain't going to be no gold at the Red Bull Battlegrounds. So we have HuK. I will say the HuK's opening is normal. Gateway 13, gas on 15, blah, blah, blah. Nothing too freaky to note about that. In a lot of circumstances, if someone is building this supply depot really early, you can conclude that he's just not going for an extra barracks. That there's no extra barracks hidden somewhere else. So he still could be going for a fast gas, but almost always 3:30 is when you can check for this expand. 305 to 310 is when that Marine pops out, so great. We're just going to leave before that point. So this is why players like HuK will do this little scoot around. You literally stop here, and then you wait. And now you go. Now you go into the base. Come on, you can go now. HuK's trying to poke around, but you'll note there's the command center going down at 330. Looks like HuK is still fairly convinced that he is going for this early expand. He's going to chrono boost out a single stalker. And now he's going to do a little bit of checking in the middle. Cool. Double chrono boost on the stalker. Kind of cool. Will help us deal with some early aggression. It'll be really tricky. We might have to cancel the Nexus against some things, but we're still fairly convinced that he is not going for some sort of early 2-racks aggression. So that makes it okay to cut that first Zealot. So this is all the information HuK needs to conclude, aha, you are early expanding. There's actually only 2 categories that our opponent can be in now. He can be early expanding, which is what he's going to be doing like the vast majority of the time here. Or he can be going for some sort of fast gas with a sneaky bunker at the front. But it's kind of hard to do that and have 4 Marines. We might check back in a second. If we see 5 Marines, we're going to be like, almost certainly not doing that. So, good friend HuK. Let's come back to the base and start looking at some of what's going on there. We've talked about reads thus far, but we want to be able to execute this opening quite well. Right when our second stalker is popping out, boom! Second assimilator. Kind of early for an early expander who's not going to be going sentry heavy. Gateway, gateway, great. We're getting these gateways up. This almost feels like HuK kind of going, I don't really know what's going to be happening, but we want to keep our stalker at the front. This is a little bit hard to do. I will back up, but you want to keep a super close eye on the stalker, and early Marine pushes, you just kite, and you can pick off a lot of Marines. That's all I have to say about that. That's just hard. While all this is going on, obviously we see HuK building probes, a little high on chrono boost. He is going to be going, I'll say this right now, he's going to be going blink with stalker and observer to be able to see onto the high ground. You know, to make use of the blink. In Protoss vs. Protoss, almost always you will start blink and then build the robo. And the idea is that you finish blink right as the observer is kind of finishing up, and then you can mount your offensive. Ha! Here, against Terran, we actually kind of want this robotics facility first, so we can get the observer in to do some critical spotting. Because sometimes we're going to want to go onto the defensive mode. But as with many Protoss builds, I mean, one stalker at our front, one stalker at his front, no other units on the frickin' map. Warp gates finishing up. Just probes, probes, probes. This is the key scan that you can make as Terran. Scanning at 630. When you see this, you can sort of, you can generally see, is the expo done? If the expo's like half done, he's probably going Dark Templar. If you see any essential buildings, you can conclude clear stuff off that. But around this time is when you actually need to know if he's expanding or not. So, great. That's all I want to say about the Terran side of things. This is about fantastic Protoss openings. Blink, observer, chrono on the blink. Doesn't look like HuK's in a rush to get the obs out. And non-stop probing, my friends. Non-stop. Only after blink gets started do we actually begin massing up a bunch of stalkers. And this is like Protoss 2.0, the way that HuK's playing. He is getting a second observer, because I will say that observers are just great whenever you're going for a gateway-focused build.
I'm here in the shadows.
And we're going to see this kick into high gear thanks to this pylon being able to warp in onto the high ground. As a follow-up, and I want to emphasize, this is a blind follow-up. It's not like HuK saw that he was doing this or that. Where is the second gateway being produced? Oh, there it is. We didn't see the model load up yet. HuK is just going for these 2 gateways. There are not extra Vespene geysers here. There's just not. This is just a nice way to exploit. And now we have some stalkers. Remember that key time around 9:30 is when those medevacs pop out, and we're going to hit just before that. Really slick. We have a good probe count, 39 to 35. Cool. Since we have gone for about 20 minutes, I'm going to stop. When we go into part 3, we're going to see how this attack goes for HuK, and then again, most important of all, see how it transitions into the mid-game. And we're also going to watch HuK forget Zealot leg speed. I can't wait!